We often fantasize about a peaceful life as if it exists somewhere else, somewhere quieter, simpler, more under control. A life without deadlines, without back-to-back meetings, without that constant buzzing of notifications. We tell ourselves, I'll feel calm when things finally settle down. I'll find peace when everything around me is no longer a mess. But here's the truth, the world never really settles. There's always one more thing, one more demand, one more unexpected turn. Even when we pull away, log off, take a vacation, turn off the phone, peace doesn't always follow. Because the noise outside isn't the only problem. The real noise, the kind that keeps you up at night, that clutters your mind during a quiet lunch, is the storm inside. Peace doesn't come from controlling the chaos. It comes from not letting the chaos control you. Chaos is the default state of modern life. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, an unanswered text that triggers overthinking, a strange look from someone you love, a news headline that steals your focus for hours. It doesn't take much to knock us off center. But here's the shift. If you're waiting for the world to become still so you can finally breathe, you'll be holding your breath forever. I once met a meditation teacher in New York City who told me about a class she held during a rainy, chaotic afternoon in Manhattan. The studio overlooked Fifth Avenue, and you could hear everything sirens honking the relentless downpour. The room was filled with tension. A student asked if they should close the windows, wait for it to pass. She said, "No, we're going to sit with the noise. We're not here to escape it. If we can't find stillness while the world is loud, we'll never find it at all." So they meditated, not despite the noise, but with it. That's the heart of it. Peace isn't hiding. Peace is presence. It's the choice to stay grounded when everything around you tries to pull you away from yourself. It's simply the space between stimulus and response where clarity lives. It's the ability to pause, to observe, and to choose instead of being swept away by every wave of emotion. But this isn't something that just happens. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly become unshakable. You practice, allowing yourself to feel discomfort without immediately needing to fix it. Letting go of things that are loud but not meaningful. Like any muscle, peace is strengthened through repetition. Every time you choose not to react, every time you sit with what is, instead of running from it, you're building something unshakable. The Stoics were among the first to remind us that peace is not passive, it's an active discipline. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor-philosopher, ruled during war plague and betrayal. Yet in his private writings, he focused not on controlling the empire, but on controlling his reactions. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." For the Stoics, peace is not the reward after struggle. It is the skill practiced during it. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that freedom wasn't about your surroundings, but about how you related to them. If someone provokes you, he said, remember, it is not their words that disturb you, but your judgment of them. This isn't about denial. The Stoic doesn't pretend the world is gentle. They simply refuse to let it dictate their inner state. They train themselves to remain still, not because life is easy, but because inner stillness is the only true refuge. In a world that changes by the hour, Stoicism offers a timeless truth. The most unshakable peace is built not around you, but within you. Have you ever wondered, why is it that two people can go through the exact same hardship, yet respond in completely different ways? They both lose their job. They both face criticism. They both encounter failure or misunderstanding. And yet one person breaks down, the other stands firm. One reacts with blame, frustration, emotional overwhelm, like a boat tossed around by waves. The other responds with quiet strength, with stillness, with an almost unshakable presence. It's not what happens that defines us, it's how we respond. The outer world is never fully in your control. You can't predict the weather. You can't stop people from being unfair, unkind, or impatient. You can't prevent every accident, every unexpected twist. But you can choose how you meet those moments. We often move through life thinking we're at the mercy of our circumstances. Life is too busy. People are too difficult. There's too much pressure. We live in a state of waiting for the outside world to calm down so that we can feel okay again. But that's a trap, because the outside world may never calm down. And if peace depends on that, we'll be waiting forever. Imagine two co-workers being publicly criticized in a meeting. The first one reacts immediately. They raise their voice, defend themselves, and spend the rest of the day angry and drained. They replay the moment over and over, unable to let go. The second one pauses, not because they're weak, but because they're wise enough to know reacting impulsively won't help. It'll only add fuel to the fire. They go home, reflect on the moment, ask themselves, was there truth in that comment? If not, is it worth holding on to? They write about it in a journal. They focus on doing their job well. And by evening they feel lighter, not because the world was kind, but because they were kind to themselves. Two people, same situation, different inner world. Your mind is the only thing you truly have control over. You can't stop others from saying something hurtful, but you can choose whether you take it personally. You can't stop life from throwing you off course, but you can choose whether you lose yourself in the storm. This doesn't mean bottling up your emotions or pretending to be fine. It means learning to observe them before they take over. It means responding, not reacting. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't arrive at this wisdom through books or comfort, but through hardship. They lived through exile, war, betrayal, poverty, and still came back to one truth. We cannot control the world, but we can always control how we live in it. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, burdened with ruling during chaos and plague, didn't write about power or conquest in his journals. Instead, he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Epictetus, once enslaved, taught his students, it's not the events that disturb us, but our judgment of them. To the Stoics, inner control wasn't weakness. It was the highest form of strength. They didn't deny the pain of life. They simply refused to hand over their peace to anything beyond themselves. This is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about standing steady in the storm without losing your clarity. In a world that spins faster every day, where opinions are loud and certainty is rare, Stoicism offers something timeless, a quiet mind, a strong heart, a steady self. That is the true wealth of a mature soul. There are days when nothing goes right. You spill coffee on your shirt right before an important meeting. Your inbox is full of demands and passive-aggressive messages. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and then a friend forgets your birthday. Little things, petty things, but they pile up, and before you know it, you're drowning in noise, external and internal. You feel tense, reactive, frustrated with everyone and everything. You wonder, why does this always happen to me? We often see peace as something we achieve when life gets easier. But real growth rarely happens in comfort. The days that push us to our edge, those are the ones that show us who we really are. In truth, chaos is not the enemy. Chaos is a mirror. It reveals how easily we break, how quickly we react, how much our emotions still control us. If you're looking for growth, don't look for peace and silence. Look at how you show up when things fall apart. In the dark, in the pressure of the soil, in total disarray, something stirs. Roots begin to reach downward, shoots push upward. That seed doesn't wait for ideal conditions. It doesn't say, I'll grow when the world is ready. It grows because the chaos itself becomes the condition for transformation. The same is true for us. Life won't wait for you to be comfortable before it tests you. It will drop you into confusion, disorder, and discomfort, not to punish you, but to reveal you. Think back on your life. The calmest seasons probably weren't the ones that shaped you the most. The times you grew, the times you found strength, clarity and new direction were likely when everything around you felt uncertain. Breakups, job losses, illness, relocation, painful changes that felt like endings but later revealed themselves as beginnings. In the moment, it felt chaotic. But in hindsight, you became someone new, stronger, wiser, softer in the right ways, harder in the right places. So maybe the chaos isn't working against you. Maybe it's working on you. What if the tension in your life right now is exactly what you need? Not to break you, but to burn away the parts of you that no longer serve who you're becoming. Instead of asking, when will this end? Try asking, what is this showing me? That change in perspective alone can shift everything. But let's be honest, it's not easy. It takes practice to stay steady in the face of disorder. It takes presence to respond instead of react. It takes courage to stop trying to control everything and instead learn to listen to what chaos is whispering. Most of us have been taught to escape discomfort as quickly as possible, to fix it, avoid it, numb it. But if you slow down just enough to witness your reactions, you'll see the places where growth wants to happen. That moment when you almost snapped at someone but chose silence instead. That quiet decision to walk away instead of prove yourself. Each of those small acts is evidence you are growing. You are not here to live a perfect life. You are here to learn how to live with imperfection and remain intact. You are not here to avoid every storm. You are here to become the kind of person who can still find the way home in the middle of one. So don't resent the chaos. Let it refine you. Every time you meet discomfort with awareness, you're not regressing, you're training. And one day, someone will look at you and wonder how you stay so calm, so clear, so grounded. And you'll smile knowing you were shaped by fire, but you did not burn. The Stoics believe that hardship is not an interruption to life, it is life. And within each challenge lies the opportunity to practice virtue. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." To the Stoic, the presence of chaos is not a failure. It is the field upon which courage, patience, discipline, and resilience are trained. When something disturbs you, Marcus Aurelius advised, "Ask not, why me? But what strength can I practice here?" Even in the harshest conditions, the Stoic seeks not to blame, but to become better through it. Epictetus taught his students to welcome difficulty like an athlete welcomes resistance, because it sharpens the body and fortifies the mind. Difficulties show a person's character. So when trouble comes, remember you are being tested, and that is a gift. This isn't about romanticizing pain. It's about refusing to waste it. In the Stoic view, every chaotic moment is an invitation to meet yourself with greater depth. And so when the world is loud, messy, and unkind, let it be your practice ground. There's a kind of silence that makes you feel at peace. And then there's another kind, the one that feels loud. You sit in a quiet room, but your thoughts won't stop. You're alone, but it doesn't feel restful. It feels uneasy, even haunting. Because real calm has nothing to do with volume. It has everything to do with how well you understand what's happening inside you. We often think peace is the absence of noise, no distractions, no arguments, no tension. But peace that depends on silence is fragile, because sooner or later the world will break the silence. Someone will disappoint you. Deadlines will pile up. Something will trigger an old memory you thought you buried. Sometimes we keep ourselves busy, not out of passion, but out of avoidance. We scroll, we work late, we over-socialize. Not because we're fulfilled, but because we're running. From a feeling, from a memory, from a truth we haven't faced. The mind will do anything to avoid discomfort, but discomfort ignored doesn't disappear. It deepens, and eventually it shows up in our bodies, our moods, our relationships. You can't find true calm by escaping yourself. You find it by returning to yourself gently, honestly, without judgment. That means sitting with the tension instead of trying to solve it immediately. Real calm isn't about controlling every thought. It's about letting thoughts arise and knowing you are more than any one of them. It's the moment you realize you can have anxiety, you can feel sadness and still keep your heart open. You can be uncertain and still choose your next step with care. That is what maturity looks like. I once heard someone say, when I stopped trying to get rid of my sadness, it softened. When I welcomed it like an old friend, it stopped shouting. There's a kind of peace that comes not from fixing yourself, but from sitting beside your pain and saying, you can be here. I'm not afraid of you anymore. You stop needing to be happy all the time. You stop needing to be productive all the time. And in that release, you discover a stillness far deeper than pleasure. You find self-understanding, and the more you understand yourself, the less you need from the world to feel okay. You don't chase validation. You don't panic when someone misunderstands you. You don't collapse when plans fall apart. Because you've already made peace with the parts of yourself the world cannot see. You become the calm, not because life got easier, but because you became clearer. So next time you're restless, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it. Stay. You might be surprised at what you discover, not about the world, but about you. And once you've seen yourself with that kind of honesty, no chaos can truly scare you again. The Stoics did not seek calm by avoiding discomfort. They found calm through understanding it. Epictetus wrote, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." This means our suffering often comes not from the events themselves, but from our inner resistance, our judgment, our unwillingness to accept what is. For the Stoics, self-understanding is a lifelong practice. They don't seek to eliminate emotions, but to observe them with clarity. Anger, fear, sadness, they are not enemies, they are teachers. Marcus Aurelius advised himself daily to meet each moment with rational thought and inner stillness. He knew the mind could be wild, but also trainable. Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. True Stoic calm is not passivity. It is an active engagement with the self, an honest look at our impulses, assumptions, and fears. Through this awareness, we stop being slaves to emotion and start becoming allies with wisdom. That's why even in silence, the Stoic listens. And even in noise, they remain still because their peace is built from the inside out. We're taught from a young age that control is safety. Control your grades, control your body, control your schedule, manage your image, organize your time, plan everything so nothing surprises you. And for a while it works, until it doesn't. Because life has a strange way of reminding us. No matter how tightly you grip, some things will still slip through your fingers. You can prepare for months and still lose the opportunity. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can eat well, sleep well, do everything right, and still get sick or heartbroken or lost. Control feels powerful until the illusion breaks. And in that breaking, we're left with a deeper truth. You never really had control, only the feeling of it. When you stop clinging to control, something softer, something wiser emerges. You become more present, more responsive, less frantic, more rooted. You start to realize that clarity doesn't come from overthinking, but from letting go. Think about the last time you were truly overwhelmed. Chances are your mind was spinning, trying to solve everything at once. What if this goes wrong? What if they leave? What if I fail? What if I can't fix this? You were exhausted, not because of the situation itself, but because of your attempt to force an outcome you couldn't guarantee. And maybe, just maybe, the most healing moment came, not when things were resolved, but when you whispered to yourself, I don't know what will happen, but I can be with this moment anyway. That's when the shoulders drop, the panic fades, not because everything is okay, but because you've stopped demanding that it has to be. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the illusion that you must control every variable in order to be okay. It means trusting yourself to meet whatever arises not perfectly, but presently. In fact, some of the best things in your life likely came unplanned. You met someone unexpectedly. A door closed and led you somewhere better. You got rejected and it rerouted your entire path for the better. When you're no longer obsessed with controlling the path, you become available to something deeper, response instead of resistance. Letting go of control is not passive, it's active. It's a practice, a muscle, a choice you make over and over again. This is the power of surrender, not in weakness, but in wisdom. You learn to say, I will show up fully, even when I don't know what's next. That's not defeat. And so slowly life begins to shift. Not because the chaos disappears, but because you're no longer trying to bend everything to your will. You're dancing with it. You're flowing with it. You're trusting that your peace doesn't depend on the outcome, but on your ability to be present for the unfolding. And in that presence, clarity comes. Not from control, but from courage. The Stoics were masters of surrender, not the surrender of action, but the surrender of attachment to outcomes. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what is within our control. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. He warned that suffering arises when we try to control what we cannot, the opinions of others, the flow of life, the timing of events. True freedom, he said, begins when we stop confusing control with influence. Marcus Aurelius echoed this wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. To the Stoics, letting go isn't passive resignation. It's a strategic redirection of energy. Instead of pouring effort into fixing the uncontrollable, they pour presence into their responses. In that way, letting go becomes an act of power, a conscious refusal to be dragged by chaos. Because once you accept what's not up to you, you reclaim everything that is your mindset, your choices, your peace. This is the Stoic version of surrender, not weakness, but wisdom in motion. There's a quiet kind of suffering that comes from wishing things were different. You wake up thinking about something that didn't go the way you hoped. A relationship that didn't last. A version of your life that never came to be. A person who didn't treat you the way you needed. And the pain doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the resistance, the internal tug of war between what is and what we wish it were. Acceptance gets misunderstood a lot. People think it means you're okay with what happened, that you're condoning it, or that you've given up. But that's not what acceptance is. Acceptance simply means I won't waste my energy fighting reality anymore. It doesn't mean you like it. It means you see it for what it is and stop letting it control your every thought. You can't heal what you're still arguing with. You can't grow if you're always trying to rewrite the past. And you can't return to yourself if you keep abandoning the present moment in favor of a life that never arrived. Sometimes the deepest healing begins with 6 quiet words. It is what it is. Now what? Not bitter, not passive, just clear. There is power in facing reality without flinching. Maybe you were hurt. Maybe it wasn't fair. Maybe you deserved better. But here you are. You don't need to erase the past to be free from it. You just need to stop dragging it into the present. Often we resist acceptance because we think it means we're weak, that if we accept it, we've lost. But the truth is, denial is exhausting. It keeps you locked in loops, replaying conversations, rewriting outcomes, asking why over and over again. Acceptance is not weakness. It's a decision to come home to yourself. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say, this is what I have, this is where I am, and I will meet this moment fully. Because when you stop trying to escape reality, you actually become more effective in responding to it. You see things clearly, you conserve energy, you make space for peace. And from that clarity, a new strength emerges. You stop needing things to be perfect in order to feel okay. You stop demanding closure from people who never gave you clarity. You stop waiting for external change to feel internally safe. You reclaim your power, not by changing everything, but by being deeply rooted in the only place power exists here now. This is not giving up. This is giving yourself permission to live again. Because when you finally accept what you cannot change, you free up all the energy you were wasting on resistance and return it to presence, to purpose, to peace. That's where healing really happens. Not in fixing the past, but in reclaiming the present. The Stoics placed great importance on one central distinction: what is up to us and what is not. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." He reminded us that pain often comes not from events themselves, but from our attachment to how we wanted things to be. To the Stoic, acceptance is not passivity, it's clarity. It's the wisdom to say, this is not within my control, but how I meet it, that is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." He understood that we cannot stop loss, failure, or disappointment from arriving at our door. But we can choose how we welcome them and how long we let them stay. The Stoic does not deny their emotions. They simply do not allow those emotions to dictate their lives. Acceptance for them is a form of discipline, a courageous act of aligning the mind with reality, not to surrender in weakness, but to stand in radical honesty and walk forward with strength. Not everyone who hurt you will say sorry. Not every story in your life will end with a bow. And you won't always get the answers you think you need. But here's the truth. No one tells you when your heart is still open and waiting. Closure is not something they give you. It's something you give yourself. There are people who will disappear without explanation. And if you spend your life waiting for them to come back and validate your pain, you'll stay stuck in the moment they walked away. Because they've already moved on. They've already found their next chapter. But you're still rereading the last page, hoping for a different ending. Here's the thing: is sometimes the people who broke you are not capable of understanding the damage they caused. Not because you didn't matter, but because they haven't faced themselves yet. And if they can't face their own shadows, how can they possibly face what they've done to someone else? That's not your fault. But it is your freedom to walk away from. Closure is overrated. What we really want isn't a final conversation. We want to feel seen. We want to know that our pain mattered. We want to believe that it wasn't all meaningless. But sometimes those things don't come from them. They come from the quiet realization that you mattered even if they never recognized it. That the way you loved, gave hope, tried. All of that still counts. Even if it was one-sided, real healing begins when you stop expecting someone else to give you permission to move forward. You can forgive without hearing "I'm sorry." You can let go without fully understanding why. It's the decision to stop bleeding for someone who didn't bring bandages. It's reclaiming your time, your space, your energy because you've already lost enough. Let this be the year you stop begging ghosts to come back and explain themselves. Let this be the chapter where you rewrite the ending, not because they returned, but because you did. You came back to yourself, to your worth, to the version of you that no longer needs external validation to feel complete. And sometimes peace comes in a whisper, not a door slam. A quiet acceptance that they may never understand what they did, but I don't need their understanding to free myself. You don't have to keep explaining your pain to people committed to misunderstanding it. Your healing is not dependent on their accountability. Your healing is your right, and you can choose it today. The Stoics never expected the world or other people to make them whole. Epictetus taught that suffering comes not from the things themselves, but from our insistence that they be different. When we cling to the idea that someone owes us closure, we tie our peace to something we cannot control. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and freedom begins the moment you stop needing anything from others. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. This wasn't about becoming cold. It was about recognizing the futility of waiting for others to give what they may never be capable of giving. In Stoic thought, dignity begins when you take your attention back from what is outside your power. Closure, then, is not about a perfect ending. It is about closing the loop inside your own heart. Not with resentment, but with clarity. You are allowed to move forward. There's a quiet voice that shows up when you scroll through social media. It whispers things like, you should be further by now. Look at them. Married, promoted, traveling, thriving, and you still figuring it out. And before you know it, your life stops feeling like your own. You stop seeing progress and start seeing only what's missing. You start measuring your worth not by your values, but by your proximity to someone else's highlight reel. Let's get something straight. There is no universal timeline. There is no fixed age when success happens. No exact season when love arrives. No final deadline for figuring yourself out. You are not behind. You are living a life that was never meant to look like anyone else's. And comparison is not a reflection of truth. It's a distortion one that blinds you to what's blooming in your own soil. Sometimes your path is slow because it's deep, because you're not building something quick and temporary. You're building something sustainable, rooted. Some people rush through life collecting checkboxes. Others move deliberately, consciously, even if that means arriving late by someone else's standards. But life is not a race. And your value doesn't decrease because you took a detour. Some people get everything they ever wanted by 30 and still feel empty by 35. Others wander, explore, fail, restart, and blossom later with depth that shortcuts can't offer. Your timeline doesn't have to match theirs. Your process is valid. Your pace is sacred. But society doesn't teach that. It celebrates youth, speed, and visibility. It teaches you to measure success by milestones and numbers. It forgets that real life happens in the spaces between milestones, the quiet mornings, the small breakthroughs, the healing you did that no one saw, the courage it took just to keep going. And maybe what you've been calling delay is actually a season of preparation, a time when you're learning lessons that success will one day depend on. A time when the roots are growing stronger beneath the surface, even if nothing seems visible yet. You are not lost. You are in the middle of becoming. Stop rushing. Stop staring at someone else's lane while doubting your own. The truth is, you have no idea what life has in store for you. No idea what's still ahead. What kind of love, purpose, peace, or surprise is on its way. And the only thing rushing does is make you miss the miracle of where you are. You are exactly where you need to be for who you are becoming to finally arrive. And when you do arrive, wherever that is, it will be yours. The Stoics were not in a hurry. They valued depth over speed and substance over show. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Life is long if you know how to use it." To the Stoic, there is no shame in moving slowly. What matters is intention, living with awareness, courage, and clarity, not comparison. Epictetus warned that chasing what belongs to others leads only to misery. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. This is the Stoics' way. Ignore the crowd. Honor your own nature. Refuse to measure your life by someone else's clock. For Marcus Aurelius, the only timeline that mattered was this one. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. So go at your pace. Take your time. Grow in silence if you must. Because the Stoics knew what we often forget: the only life worth living is the one that is fully yours. Respect is not something you beg for. It's not something you earn by over-explaining, pleasing, or shrinking yourself just to be accepted. True respect comes when you embody your worth quietly, when you know who you are deeply enough that you no longer need to be understood by everyone. There was a time when you might have chased it, explaining yourself again and again to someone who had already decided not to hear you, trying harder in a relationship where your boundaries were ignored, overworking, overgiving, overproving, just to be seen as enough. But eventually you learn, the moment you chase respect, you've already placed yourself beneath it. People can sense desperation even when it's quiet. When your energy says, "Please notice me," they will test how far they can push you. And if you don't know where the line is, you'll wake up one day exhausted, resentful, and wondering how it got this far. Here's the truth. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to justify your boundaries. Respect is not requested. It is revealed through how you hold yourself. Think of someone you admire not for their words, but for their calm. They don't demand attention, and the room adjusts to them, not the other way around. That's presence. And presence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from alignment, from the quiet knowledge that I don't have to be liked to be valuable. I don't have to be loud to be heard. I don't have to chase to be chosen. But this isn't easy. If you were raised to people please, if you were taught to make yourself small so others would feel comfortable, then standing tall feels dangerous. Setting boundaries feels rude. Saying no feels like betrayal. Choosing yourself feels selfish. But none of that is true. You're not being unkind. You're being clear. Clarity is what separates dignity from distortion. When you know what you will and will not tolerate, when you say less and watch more, you stop negotiating your worth in spaces that don't see you. You stop repeating yourself, and that's when the world starts to respond differently. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you walk away from, and by what you no longer respond to. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Just distance, just the quiet closing of a door that was never meant to stay open. You don't need to chase respect. You just need to respect yourself enough to stop chasing. Because the moment you stop seeking it from the outside, you start to carry it from the inside. And that, more than anything else, is what people truly feel. That's what they respond to. That's what they remember when you leave the room. The Stoics taught that the only approval that truly matters is your own. Epictetus warned, if you wish to be loved, love yourself. If you wish to be respected, respect yourself. Respect in Stoicism is not a social prize. It is an internal standard. It begins with your values, your limits, and your unwavering sense of self. You don't earn it by persuading others. You claim it by living in alignment with what you believe is right, regardless of how others react. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. To the Stoic, external validation is fleeting. What endures is integrity, how you carry yourself when no one's watching, how you respond when disrespected without retaliation, but with restraint. You do not demand respect from others. You build a life so grounded that disrespect loses its grip on you entirely. And when you walk away from people who do not honor your presence, you're not losing anything. You're remembering who you are. Real strength is quiet. It lives in the space between emotion and reaction. It shows itself in the pause. When you could lash out but don't. When you could prove a point but choose peace instead. There's a false belief many of us grow up with, that to be strong, you must suppress your feelings, that emotions are a weakness, a liability, something to hide or push away. But the truth is, the strongest people feel everything. They just don't let their feelings run the show. They don't deny pain. They honor it without letting it dictate their actions. They don't pretend not to be hurt. They just refuse to let that hurt speak for them. Emotions are not the problem. The problem is when emotions become automatic reactions. When anger means yelling. When disappointment means withdrawal. When fear means control. When sadness means shutting the world out. But you are not your first emotion. You can feel the urge to fight and still choose to walk away. That's not emotional suppression. That's emotional mastery. It means you've developed enough self-trust to say, I can wait until I know what's true, then respond with intention. That kind of inner control is rare, but it's the difference between a reactive life and a conscious one. Think of all the times you said something you regretted, not because you meant it, but because it came from pain, not clarity. Now think of the moments you held back from the grounded, self-aware part that doesn't need to prove anything. You're not bottling up your feelings. You're letting them pass through before you act on them. That's the difference between reaction and response. And the more you practice this, the more powerful you become. People notice. They may try to trigger you and fail. They may expect chaos and meet calm. Not because you're emotionless, but because you've learned to stay rooted in your own peace. You become the one who brings stillness to the room, not by force, but by presence. They are deeply connected to their inner world, but not ruled by it. They know their fire, but don't let it burn everything down. They know their shadows, but don't throw them at others. That's the kind of strength that changes everything. The Stoics believed that true strength lies not in domination, but in self-governance. Epictetus taught, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. If someone can pull you into reactivity, they have more control over your mind than you do. To the Stoics, emotional discipline wasn't about coldness, it was about freedom. Freedom from being puppeted by impulse. Freedom from saying or doing something you'd later regret. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When disrespected, misunderstood, or provoked, the Stoic doesn't suppress emotion, they witness it. They allow space between stimulus and action. What is the most virtuous response here? Not, how do I win this moment? This deliberate pause is where true power lives. Not in loud responses, but in quiet restraint. Because when your emotions no longer control you, you become unshakable. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that kindness makes you a target. That softness is something you outgrow. That being gentle means being taken advantage of. So we armor up. We trade vulnerability for sarcasm, empathy for defensiveness, tenderness for performance. We act unbothered when we care deeply. We hold our tongue when we long to connect. We build walls, not because we don't feel, but because we feel so much and we've been hurt before. But here's the truth. Being soft does not mean being weak. It means being strong enough to stay open in a world that teaches you to close. Walk away without hatred. Softness doesn't mean you never get angry. It means your anger is guided by wisdom, not by impulse. It means your compassion isn't naive. It's anchored. The strongest people are not the coldest. They are the ones who face pain and chose not to become it. They could have grown bitter, but they chose understanding. That kind of gentleness is not weakness. It's power that has nothing left to prove. You don't have to harden to be respected. You don't have to become sharp to protect yourself. You can be soft and assertive, loving and clear, peaceful and powerful. Softness is not the opposite of strength, because true strength doesn't need to crush. It knows how to bend, how to yield, how to forgive, without losing self-respect. This world will try to shame you for your sensitivity. It will praise detachment, reward cynicism, and confuse numbness with maturity. But numbness isn't strength, it's protection. And protection has its place, but so does openness. So does warmth. So does love that doesn't flinch when it's unreturned. So does a quiet heart that sees everything, and still chooses kindness. You don't have to apologize for being soft. You don't have to toughen up to survive. You can be soft and still make it through heartbreak, betrayal, failure, grief. In fact, your softness might be why you make it through. Because softness allows emotion to move through you, not build up inside you. It allows you to bend in the wind and not break. The people who love quietly, who forgive silently, who sit with you in pain without trying to fix it, they are the ones holding the weight of the world with their bare hands. And they carry it not for praise, but because they know what it means to feel unseen and choose never to make others feel the same. So if you are soft, stay soft. Not for them, but for you. Because your softness is not weakness. It is the part of you that stayed human in a world that tried to make you forget how. The Stoics were often misunderstood as emotionless, but true Stoicism is not about shutting down feelings. It's about cultivating inner strength so steady that even deep emotions can pass through without breaking you. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what greater proof of strength is there than remaining kind in the face of cruelty, compassionate in the face of betrayal, soft not because you're naive, but because you've survived and remained whole. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. To the Stoic, the true test of character isn't how loud your resistance is, but how calm your presence remains when provoked. How deeply you can feel without letting it turn you cruel. The Stoic doesn't fight softness. They discipline it. They give it shape, direction, and strength. So let your softness live. Just let it be backed by clarity, by values, and by stillness. Because in the end, Stoicism doesn't ask you to be cold. It asks you to be immovable in your peace. It's late now. The world has quieted. The noise has faded at least a little. And here you are, still holding it all, the thoughts, the tension, the weight of trying. But maybe tonight, you can begin to set it down. You've spent so much of your life proving you're capable, proving you're good enough, proving you can be strong even when you're breaking inside. You've spent years trying to be understood, trying to be chosen, trying to earn your place in a world that often forgets how much effort it takes just to stay soft. And you did well. You survived more than most people know. You kept going when you had every reason not to. You got back up again and again quietly without applause. But now you're tired, and maybe it's time to realize you don't have to prove anything anymore. Let your heart feel what it needs to feel without rushing to fix it. Let this be the moment where you say, I don't need to earn rest. I am allowed to just be still. The ache begins to dissolve, not because everything is solved, but because you've stopped resisting what is. You've surrendered to the now. You don't need to finish healing to be allowed joy. Right now, as you are imperfect, tender, in progress, and tonight you are safe to stop. Stop striving. Stop rushing. Stop carrying it all alone. Just rest. Even the Stoics who ruled empires and faced death without fear knew the value of rest. Marcus Aurelius, after long days of war and governance, would return to his journal, not to push harder, but to remember. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. Stoicism is not about constant productivity. It's about returning to yourself, especially when the world is loud. It's about recognizing that your worth is not in what you produce, but in how you remain present. Seneca warned against endless striving. Cease to hope, and you will cease to fear. The person who is always chasing something is never at peace. So tonight, the Stoic would ask you not to conquer anything, but to soften. Just close your eyes now and rest.